What are the specialties and unique characteristics of a grow facility design? Because there are a lot of different things going on in there, and Noel is really nice. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've done?
Well, as I said before, there's the utilitarian aspects of grow facility, a co-located grow facility, including as much grow space as you can possibly provide within the footprint that you have. All the lab and processing that's required, trim rooms, equipment, security design, internet, all of that stuff, plus the retail environment at a co-located facility. So it's a bit complex for us. There's a lot of consultants involved. We have a team of structural engineers, code consultants, mechanical engineers, security design, all of that. That also goes along with the owner's project management team. So there's a lot that goes into it that's got to be coordinated. And this is all about just sort of keeping teams moving forward, at a good pace.
Right. Absolutely.
Meeting construction schedules and construction budgets. So the more you understand about all of the functioning.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've been in some facilities where I've had to walk an extra several hundred feet, and it doesn't sound like much, but when you do that all day, it takes your time. And my time is valuable, and I'm not going to be doing that. So when you lay things out properly, and you have everything designed just right, you can eliminate your molds. You have your HVACs running properly. You have everything designed perfectly. What are your ceiling heights? What's your square footage of cubic space of air in there? How are you flowing everything? All of these things are so important, and when you line everything up properly, like we can now, we can use this industry and everything we have at our fingertips now to develop some of the finest facilities that are out there. It's just a beautiful thing.
I would add that your overhead space is probably the most critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Issue, because everything's running over the plants. So if you don't have the height, it's a problem.
Correct. Yes.
So that's number one right off the bat.
Right.
You have the right height.
Yeah. Starting from scratch is hard, but retrofitting a building, you just have to come in and know everything. You have to talk to these experts. You have to come in with open eyes, understand that retrofitting a building is much different than starting from scratch, and it can present unique problems. You need to know everything that's in them walls. I mean, mold pops open at 70% humidity. There's no stopping that. Everything comes out. So, when you understand everything that could possibly be coming at you, and you have this type of a team to guide you and help you right from the beginning, I'm really impressed.
We actually highly suggest 3D modeling the building, because in that way you'll be able to make sure that you have all the clearances above the plenum, and you'll be able to actually do energy modeling off of that, and then you'll be able to turn those energy models over to NGrid and get rebates on to show that it is a code compliant system, that your comm checks do check out, and then everything is sufficient for the design.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, Avalon, are there other technology options to reduce energy costs that you're working on?
Yeah, definitely. So if you look at most facilities, once you've taken care of the cooling, you still have to worry about all of the other electrical needs for the facility. And as more facilities come online, utilities traditionally have raised rates on peak hour. So you get charged extra for peak demand, and that can suddenly start, the cost that you had factored in early on might suddenly be very, very different 2 years down the road. And this has been the case in Colorado. So this is something that has to be borne in mind. And what we've found is in places where there are two types of growers. One, people that have expanded from traditional greenhouses into cannabis, people that are coming into this industry with a new fresh set of eyes. So the ones that have existing greenhouses actually can benefit from things like combined heat and power at the same time, because then you're generating electricity, you also can use the heat in winter, and then you use the engine-driven chillers in summer. The combined heat and power also works with new facilities, but it's not necessarily as much of a good fit. But what we have also found more recently is we take in other inputs such as solar and battery storage into the combined heat and power system so that they all work in tandem to basically address that core electrical need. And then you use the excess heat either for dehumidification throughout the year, or you use it for heating your traditional greenhouses later in the winter and the fall months. So there can be a huge advantage, but I think there not only has to be you need to look at the cooling side of the building, but you also have to look at generating enough capacity to deal with the electrical needs of the building. I mean, even a 5,000 square foot facility is going to be using 40 times their average household. And as you get multiple facilities in a local area, the grid just will not be able to support this expansion. So if you can't generate locally, 2-3 years down the road, you're going to be paying substantially higher energy costs just because you'll be the primary user of the energy on the grid.
Excellent, thank you. Fran, could you give us an idea of the value of incentives we might expect if we have the grow facility participate in the incentive programs that you have available?
Sure, I can. I'd like to step back for 1 second, though. It's like we keep on saying it's very expensive to operate these facilities, but I don't think we've really thrown a number out. I know you've mentioned a number. But I mean, $35 to $50 a square foot for energy cost would not be unheard of for one of these facilities. So if you have an office building, it might be $3 a square foot. A lab might be $10 a square foot. So these are really monstrous energy fees that we're talking about trying to knock down with the help of the solar, things like Tecogen and those items, and naturally our utility incentives. So we've been involved in the utilities in Massachusetts, have been involved in a number of projects. There are about 6 to 8 that we've already offered incentives for, and there's about 10 to 12 collectively that we're working on right now. So your peers or people ahead of you in the industry are definitely interested in using these incentives and taking advantage of them. Looking at a facility, say about 20,000 square foot, 25,000 square foot grow facility, if you were to put in the energy efficient LED lighting and some HVAC measures, it wouldn't be unheard of to get a $100,000 incentive for a project. That said, I know there are projects that have in Massachusetts that have been done that have received like $500,000 of incentives for their projects. Now the incentives, the way they're paid out, it's proportional to the amount of energy that you save. The more you save, the more you get, and naturally the larger the facility, the more you're going to save, so the more you'll get as well. So these are, it's a little hard to offer you a incentive or suggest a certain incentive per square foot that you might get for your facility, but the point I want to make is that these are pretty substantial sums. It was mentioned earlier that might cost $300 a square foot to build one of these facilities out, so it's not going to cover half the construction cost, but it's certainly some very valuable help to get you that not only will help with your first cost, but help you save energy and save dollars in the way you operate the facility down the road.
Absolutely, and we really need to watch our carbon footprint. I mean, we get a lot of static from the amount of electricity we use. It's not just, when I go to different hearings, it's not just the smell issues we hear about, it's the amount of water we use, it's the amount of energy we use. Any way we can go to a town and say we're being as efficient as we can, that's just better for us. To be good stewards of what we do is just fantastic, so thank you. Scott, what are the best and most practical types of solar applications and the financial solutions that would go with these cannabis operations?
Sure. A couple things I did want to comment on.
Sure.
You talked about carbon offset. I think it's critical. It's one of the reasons the state has funded incentive programs for our industry and continue to do that, going forward with things like solar and storage, right? And storage being a way of firming up a variable energy source like solar is. And I think that's an important concept to be considering because when you look at your typical electrical bill, you've got charges in kilowatt hours, which we talked about being able to offset 1 for 1, but you've also got these kW charges, these demand charges, that the utilities have to have a certain capacity at any given point in time to support everybody on the grid. So how do you make sure you're not peaking? You know, your peaking KW charges aren't hurting you in the facility. And storage can be one of those things. If you're adding on to a renewable energy source that can help you with those peaking charges. So you know, part of the energy consulting that goes on, lighting, what are you doing with your lighting loads? Because they're significant in these facilities. What are you doing with your motor loads? Can you add renewable energy? Can you add storage to help you with peaks? All those things should be considered. And from a timing perspective, you should be doing it up front, right? Not later on, because the incentives are going to be greater for you, number one. But number two, for instance, when we do a project, we're a mini power plant that needs to be interconnected onto the grid. So we have to go through an interconnection process with the utility. If it's a big enough facility, that could take 4 to 5 months to get through that process. So timing is also something that you really have to consider when you're doing these. So the earlier you get engaged, the better, you know, the more help we can give you. In regards to, there's different types of solar energy implementations. As I mentioned before, rooftop is probably the easiest. You do have to consider structural loads in the building, and you have to consider your membrane. You're putting something that, you know, is probably going to last 20, 30 years on your roof, so you don't want to put it on a membrane. You're going to replace it in the next 2 years. So all those, again, should be considered up front. You can certainly do a ground mount installation. They take a little longer depending on the town you're in, and the land you want to put it on. The permitting process is going to take, you know, a little more time. There's canopy applications that you can put over parking lots now. If you're looking at a canopy, you're probably on the neighborhood of 70 cents a watt more to put that in, because you have to build the infrastructure. And again, you're going to have to go through a little longer permitting process with that. But those are kind of the three major, you know, types of installations. And all fundamentally work the same. They just cost a little bit different and take a little bit different methods to get them permitted and approved. Regarding financing, you know, there's everything from the cash purchase, which we see from some of our owner finance deals, to leases. We do operating leases and capital leases. Where operating leases kind of come into play nicely is where people who really can't utilize those federal tax credits right away. It might take them 4, 5, 6, 7 years to really utilize them. So in this case, the bank is basically taking the tax benefits and they're using that to buy down your lease payment, and you do a 7 to 10 year type product and they cash flow very nicely. So that's an opportunity for people who don't really have the ability to use those tax benefits, but they're for-profit entities. And then there's the power purchase agreement, and as I mentioned before, for the non-for-profit, you know, entity that wants to own solar, or really not own solar, but implement solar. We would own that, right? We would own that system and maintain it long-term, and then we would sell you that power at a reduced rate over what you're paying for power today on the grid. And the nice part about those is you really know exactly what you're paying for power over the term of the contract. Right? So those are fixed, you know, typically they're fixed contracts for 15, 20, 25 years. So you don't have to worry about your energy costs escalating at a rate that you really can't estimate. So you can build that into your cost modeling and your operation and maintenance budgets.
Excellent, thank you. Eric, could you tell us what is different about your project in Norwell, Helicon's project in Norwell? Tell us what's unique and different about that.
Well, we, as I mentioned, we had to mobilize and, you know, jump on a learning curve to ground up facility, as opposed to retrofitting an existing, you know, industrial building. So there are a lot of challenges in terms of site needed its own septic system, all the way to establishing what kind of redundancy they were going to carry for backup generators, electrical generation, redundancy in the HVAC design, because these are obviously very expensive, valuable props that they do not want to lose in case there's some kind of mechanical failure of the building. We had to navigate different lighting designs. We started out with one, and as we got deeper into a high pressure sodium design, we ended up with another during the process of that part of the project. Varying impervious finishes throughout the facility. Obviously, mold is
Key.
an obvious issue here. But all of our decisions were based on the owner's kind of state-of-the-art desires for this type of facility, in addition to meeting with the medical research team in Vermont. In terms of how the work they're doing on dosing, packaging, even their branding of their product. So that obviously affected our retail design. It's also flagship headquarters for their future facilities, so they're carrying administrative staff not only for this location but for other locations. How they were going to handle employees entering in and out of the building, where those break rooms were located, and their services. So we actually found that more of the footprint that we anticipated was being eaten up by those human functions rather than the rooms for plants.
Right.
So we did lose a little bit of the square footage there, but I think those are kind of triage decisions that the owners made. And as you mentioned, these things really have to function properly.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So,
Correct.
a little bit of the background there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we open up some questions? We're running a little tight on time.
Can someone give me a quote